All right, so we got some more good news, potential good news about the coronavirus, and I'm going to answer a question that was kind of, in a way, asked by a lot of people yesterday. What is the economy? Welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
It's a me,
Dario!
Woohoo! Let's go!
All right, so before we get started, let me just give you a quick reminder. Any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Dario the Show on Instagram or at SuperDario_world. A lot of people have been using that lately, and I appreciate it. It's always fun to talk to people, and those conversations are the reason why this particular topic is going to be addressed right now, because I figured it's easier than just, well, I guess I could copy-paste it to everybody who asked in one way or another. Somewhere nicer than others, but I'll get into that in a minute. Let's first start off with potential good news. Also, follow my Facebook page, Super Dario World. I load everything there, so if you want to have like a place that has direct access to everything, it'll probably be right there. So, the good news first, potential good news. A new study has shown that it's been released that apparently there has been no cases of children transmitting coronavirus to adults. Now, this is actually wrong. The study is, let's say, it's been misquoted because the people who released the study immediately said, that's not what we said, that's not what we said, that's not what we said. So they walked it back almost immediately. Why? It's because apparently they took one sentence out of context, and I'll tell you exactly the sentence that it was. What they said is they got from there was a joint study between the World Health Organization and China, and in this study, there was one particular line that said, the China World Health Organization Joint Commission could not recall a single episode during contact tracing where transmission occurred from a child to an adult. Now, they did want to clarify that there was another line in this study that said the following. The role of children in passing the disease to others is unknown, in particular giving large numbers of asymptomatic cases. So, in conclusion to that, children almost certainly do transmit COVID-19. That's what they wanted to clarify. So basically, I think they were legally covering their ass, but what they're saying there is the role of children passing the disease is unknown. I mentioned this is good news. I know how it could be confusing, like, how, Dario, how could that be good news? You were saying that children cannot pass it to adults, blah, blah. The good news here is that most cases for children are asymptomatic, at least to the point where they were trying to do contact tracing in China for this virus, and they could not find a single case where a child transmitted it to an adult. That's good news. It means that this thing is really not that dangerous for kids. And so, I mean, I guess if you care about kids, it's good news for you. If you don't care about kids, then, well, I don't know what to tell you. But it means that they could probably go back to school, and at least they would be safe. You would just have to keep them away from older or at-risk people, but that would be in a case-by-case basis where I just, have to double down on the fact that, you know your own life, you know how you do your things. If you have a grandparent living with you who is an at-risk person, maybe don't send the kids to school, but you can still do at home and stuff. So again, case-by-case basis, you know your life better than I do, and it's your life, so do whatever you want with it. But it's good news. Again, it's always good news when you hear that at least the kiddies are safe, all right? It's not that dangerous for them. This is good news. And they said it's unknown if they pass the disease. So it's possible, even if it's, even if it's just probable that they could transmit it at a lower rate. That's good news. That's really good news. I mean, it's better than hearing that they transmit it at a higher rate, right? So, again, trying to keep it optimistic there, kind of good news. On bizarre news, and something that it's weird because I kind of called it yesterday. Remember what I was talking about yesterday about petty tyrants? Well, the governor of California here is an idiot. And so basically, he was upset at the people at Orange County, but I don't get, I don't sometimes I don't understand how people don't think a few steps ahead. So the beaches in Los Angeles, the governor is upset that 40,000 people went to the beach of Orange County, right? Here's the thing, though. If all the beaches in LA are closed, but the ones in Orange County are open, guess where everybody's going to go? And it was a hot weekend. Everybody's going to go to the exact same beach. So everybody is going to congregate at the one beach that's open. It's a funnel because you created a funnel. So Governor Newsom was very upset that all these people went out to this particular beach. And then the other places in California, they start opening up more beaches. People start spreading out a little bit. And actually in San Diego, the mayor praised the people for being classy and, social distancing and being safe and being smart because, they don't want to die. They just want to go out, enjoy the beach a little bit, maybe surf, and try to stay safe. So apparently today, there was a memo that was leaked that the governor was considering closing down all the beaches in California. Every single one. Now, that was generally a stupid idea because you can't give somebody something and then take it away immediately, especially when you don't really know the consequences of it. First off, let's just clarify. As soon as you open things up, cases are going to spike. Why? Because you open things up. Doesn't matter if it's right now, 10 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it's going to spike because it's you open things up. That's just the fact. Get ready for it. Doesn't matter when it happens, it will happen. So the governor was very upset, and he was like, no, you were bad children over there in Orange County. I'm going to punish every single one of you. And everybody naturally is upset because either you think we're grown-ups or we're not, right? Either we're grown-ups or we're not. Either you treat us like grown-ups or you don't. And if you're not going to treat us like grown-ups, well then, fuck you, right? We're not children for you to just spank us, all right? You are a guy. There's nothing that says that you're a better guy than we are. There's nothing that says that you're a smarter guy than we are. You were just more popular in a particular election. That's it. And if you think we're idiots that can't handle this, the idiots are the ones that voted for you. So that probably means that it was a bunch of idiots that made an idiotic decision. So following your rule is idiotic. So that's the way my brain goes. But going back to the point. So now it's been confirmed that apparently what the governor is going to do is, I'm going to close the beach in Orange County to teach you bad children, you bad American children, a lesson, right? Get your spanking. Guess what's going to happen, numbnuts? The people that were going to go to the beach in Orange County are now going to go to other beaches. Because guess what? People don't have anything to do. They have cars. Gas is cheap right now, and they can just go to other fucking beaches. California has a lot of them. And if you close every single one of them down, guess what? You can't stop all of us. There's going to be a lot of civil disobedience. Why? Because fuck you. That's why. And that is actually a perfectly valid reason. If you're asking me. And honestly, it's the reason why a lot of people do a lot of dumb things, right? Because fuck you. That's why you ain't going to tell me what to do. Why? Because there's, again, the reasons that I expressed before. There's nothing here that proves that you are smarter than me, and the evidence is actually on my side, right? Actually, there's a new study that came out from China that says, well, again, I'm iffy about the things that come out on China, but actually this is a study of people studying China, so maybe. Anyway, here's the point. There's a study that was made in China of 318 outbreaks that happened in China. That means that different clusters, they studied 318 clusters. Out of these 318 clusters, they only found a transmission that happened outdoors in 2 cases. So 2 people, I'm assuming from one outbreak, out of the 318 outbreaks that they studied, transmitted this thing outside, and apparently it's because they were hanging out together. Close proximity. So apparently outside, this is not a big transmission issue. When you're hanging out outside, it's not a big deal. Why? Because we know that this thing gets killed by sunlight. And we also know from other viruses that being outside is actually a good thing. Let me give you an example. In the winter, a lot of people like to say, like, oh, grab a jacket because you're going to get sick, in winter, right? Because it's cold. The cold does not make you sick. What makes you sick, generally in wintertime, is that you stay inside more. So avoiding the cold, hanging out inside more, is the reason why you get sick more, because you're hanging out in places where viruses can live. They can't survive outside in the heat and the cold. So being outside is actually good. It's been proven multiple times of various different types of diseases, viruses, everything. And so the thing that could actually help people, it'll help them mental health, physical health. Getting sunlight is super important for humans, right? You don't want to have a vitamin D deficiency. It helps with the production of serotonin. There's a whole bunch of benefits of sunlight, okay? We need it. Humans need sunlight, right? It's a fact. And so you're trying to make people what? You're going to try to punish everybody in California for what one group who, from what I saw, it wasn't extremely bad. And I mean, it was not great, but it wasn't extremely bad. It wasn't egregious. And because from what I saw from the aerial shots, most people were still socially distancing, at least 6 feet away. In the water, completely different, I guess. But what can you do? Surfers do what surfers do. They're not going to follow the rules. They're just going to break them. So if fortunately, again, they did not close everything down, but if they would have, you would have seen a lot of social disobedience and a lot more protesting. Why? Because fuck you. That's why. You don't control me. All right? I am not a child. I'm a grown ass man. I can do whatever the fuck I want. And that's the logic that most people have. Honestly, it's way easier to go against somebody than it is to actually think what your actual position is. I don't know, it's like an immediate gut reaction. No, fuck you. Like immediately. It's very easy to be like, it's very easy to know what you're against than to actually figure out what you're for. It's an interesting thing about humans. But anyway, that's like the weird news here in California. And like I said, petty tyrants, keep looking. They just like that power. They like, you know what's really weird? What happens when you want to protest, right? You want to go exactly to the Capitol building, and that's where you're going to protest, right? So, so in California, they were protesting the Capitol building in Sacramento. So he made it illegal to protest the Capitol building, which is fucking insanity. It's insanity. It's like, aha, well, I can't take away your First Amendment right, but I can kind of take it away. I don't know. It seems extremely illegal to me because there's a First Amendment for the reason. And if you really want to piss people off, start touching those amendments. You're going to make a lot of enemies really quick. So, yeah, it's like, all right, I'm not taking away your right to protest. I'm just taking away your right to protest here, kind of. Nope, that's not how that works. So, like I said, this is not sustainable, and they just keep proving this more and more and more. But anyway, let's move on to the economy thing, right? Because I found this super interesting. Some people were actually genuinely asking me, like, why should I care about the economy? Like, why? Well, why should I care about money when it comes to life? Like, why is life less important than money and stuff like that? Some people were meaner. It doesn't matter. But ultimately, it came down to, I think there is a fundamental misunderstanding on what the economy is. And it makes sense if you read the technical definition and you're like, that really doesn't make sense to me. So I'll read you the definition, and so you can understand why it's like, it's kind of weird, and then I'll kind of explain to you what it is. So the definition is the wealth and resources of a country or region, especially in terms of production and consumption of goods and services, also the careful management of available resources. What does this mean? I know that a lot of people, when they think about economy, they think maybe about the stock market or money. That's pretty much what it is. No. The economy is absolutely every single thing of value that we have in a particular region. Let's call that region the United States. So let's just focus on the economy of the United States. It's absolutely every single thing we have of value, meaning every single apple in every single orchard, every single seed, every single car, every single tire, every single drop of fuel, every single person who is willing and able to perform labor. Human labor is part of the economy, and it's all interconnected. And I remember this one actually threw me off a little bit when I took my first college economy class, and the professor said economics is the study of human behavior, or the prediction of trying to predict human behavior. And I was like, what the hell does that have to do with money? Human behavior, well, we're predicting it, is how you identify where value is. So economics, basically, it's the study of value or giving value to things or predicting where it's going to be and stuff like that. So let's talk about what gives something value. And let's just start off with an easy point. Money. What is money? Money is just paper, right? But it's a stand-in for value. How do we define what the value of that money is? Why is it that the US dollar is different from the Mexican peso? Why is it different from the euro? It's because it's a stand-in for the value of the economy of a particular region. So let's say, for example, I have apples. I have an apple tree, right? And a friend of mine has an orange tree. And so it's like, right, I grab one of those apples and I have one apple's worth of value, right? Just as itself, I have one. But how much value is this? So I go up with my friend and I'm like, hey, do you want to trade apples for oranges? And he's like, all right, well, do you want to trade one for one? And then I start thinking, let me think. Well, oranges grow a lot easier than apples, and my apple here, it's like it needs a certain type of temperature, certain region. It's a lot harder. It takes a little bit more care. It only comes out certain times a year, so it's rarer. So I think, let's say, one apple should be worth 2 oranges. And my friend could decide either yes or no, and then we decide to make the trade or not. But it could be, let's say he says yes. So 1 apple would be worth 2 oranges. However, let's assume that I have 10 apple trees, right? So I'd be like, well, I have a surplus of apples here. I have a ton of apples. I guess I could modify stuff, and maybe it would be a lot more advantageous to me to just do, like, let's say one apple to 1 orange. Okay, fine. But let's assume that my friend has an orange tree, and there's all other 10 people that have orange trees. So there's a surplus of options for me to get orange trees. Now, the value of my apple is dictated pretty much by me. I can go and ask every single one, like, oh, what would you give me for this apple? One would be like, I'll give you 1 orange. One will give you 2 oranges. One will give you 3. It depends on how much they want to have an apple. However, that exact same apple, if it's just in a random tree out in the middle of the wilderness, has no value to me, right? That apple only has value to me if it's in the store. Why? Because there was a process of things that gave that thing value, at least in economic terms. For example, let's say there's a tree, there's an apple tree out in the forest, and nobody can get to it, so it has really no value to us. But there's one person that lives nearby, and it's like, you know what? I'm going to go there, and I'm going to take a whole bunch of apples. So he injected labor into this. There was a natural thing, there was a natural resource, and he injected his own labor into it. That started giving a little bit of extra value. However, that apple's still pretty much worthless to everybody else except him. I mean, he'll get food from it unless he can distribute it somewhere. So either he carries it, which means more labor, or he puts it in a truck, which, again, you need to add the value of a truck. And, again, let's say, for example, a car with no fuel really has no value. You need to add fuel into it, and then you need a driver, because a car might have fuel, but if you don't have anybody to drive it, then it has no value. Or tires. If the tires don't have any air, then it doesn't have any value. So the point is you need to start adding stuff in order for it to have value, for things to have value. So returning to the money question, money is just paper, for example. And let's say I have every single dollar bill in existence. I have absolutely every single dollar bill in existence. I have a lot of paper. However, there's somebody else out there that has all the food in the world, right? So I have all the money in the world, but they have all the food in the world. And I'm going to be like, hey, let me buy some food. And he's like, you got nothing I need. I got all the food in the world. What do you have to offer me? Like, I can give you money. Like, there's not, you're just giving me paper. It's worthless. Like, I can't eat your paper. It's not, I might take 1 or 2 few pieces just to have it as a collectible, just to be like, haha, I have this because it's pretty, like 1 of each bill. But I'll trade you 1 apple for it. And to me, that 1 apple might be worth all the money in the world because I would starve without it. I would die. And then I could be like, you know what? I'm gonna fucking kill you, and then I'll take all your food. And he's like, you could do that, but I might just offer this dude over there 1 apple a day to make sure you don't kill me or to kill you. And so in that particular scenario, money's worthless. It's just paper. You can't eat it. So throughout history, we've decided what things stand for money. So instead of being like, well, 1 apple is worth 2 oranges, we're like, all right, 1 apple is worth $1, 2 oranges is worth $1. And instead of only having to trade goods, we can also trade services in exchange for a stand-in. So let's say, for example, I'm a plumber, and my work is worth 100 apples an hour. But I don't want to have 100 apples an hour. I would rather have something that I could use to buy the equivalent of 100 apples an hour. So then I'd be like, all right, let's create something that we all agree on, which is currency. That's what money is. Something that we all agree on has a particular set of value, and that it's backed up by the government and the banks and stuff. And so that's what money is. We all agree that that's what the value has. Now, what's the issue with the economy right now? What does it mean that it's crashing? Have you ever been on a bike and you're riding it and you're happy, and somebody throws a wrench or a stick right in the front tire, and you're gonna see that thing spin for a few seconds, and eventually it's gonna get stuck, and you're gonna go flying, man. You're gonna go flying face first, or you're gonna do the scorpion, and it's gonna hurt like fucking hell. Depending on how fast you're going is how much you're gonna get hurt. It's actually one of the gnarliest ways you can fall from a bike. But anyway, so that's pretty much what happened to our economy. The economy was the all the machine, let's say, was the bicycle and the labor was the person riding the bike. It's actually a pretty good example. And so we just halted that immediately. Now, the problem here is that we were making a bet. Here's the gamble that everybody made, or at least the government made. The foundations of our economy were very strong. The underlying structures of our economy, the machine, everything was really rock solid. We got the greatest economy in the history of the world, right? That's what we have. And so we can put this on, we can risk hurting this a little bit, because since the underlying functions, the foundations of it are so good, are so solid, we'll be able to have an immediate recovery, right? Even if we're gonna fall down hard, but we're gonna get back up pretty quickly. Here's the issue, though. Things were going pretty fast, and they're going really well. We were going downhill. So, as I mentioned before, the faster you're going, the harder you're gonna hit. And there's a lot of unintended consequences. For example, when the economy's doing good, when companies are making money, what do? They expand. What is it? There's aggressive expansion. And what does aggressive expansion mean? That means that they will take on debt. Why? Because they need to grow. That's pretty much it. It's an opportunity to grow. We're making more money. Time to grow, because everybody always wants to grow. That's what humans do. They want to make their things better. What they were working on, they want to make it better. So you take on debt, and then all of a sudden you can't make any more money. And what happens then? You fucking panic, and you have to downsize. And the people that you had hired because you were expanding, you kind of have to let them go. Some of the machinery, you're already stuck with it. Can you return it? Can you not return it? Things get pretty bad pretty quickly. You panic because now you're overstretched. You don't know what to do, and it usually means letting people go or canceling other projects. For example, let's say you were going to move to a bigger building, or you're going to change or you're going to upgrade stuff. You have to cancel that, which means that every single construction job, or a lot of construction jobs have to get canceled. Or here's a fun fact that I just recently learned. There was a lot of people who had just bought houses, because the economy is doing good, they have money, they have savings, they bought a house. However, since they were in escrow, if they were in escrow at that time and they lost their jobs, they're immediately out of escrow. Now, I don't know the consequences of that yet. I think there's like a penalty or something, because if you're in escrow, for a house, or I guess for another property, you cannot change jobs. You're locked, you're stuck. So if for no fault of your loan, all fault of your loan, your job status changed, every single one of those houses that were in escrow, boom, out of there. You're immediately out, right? It's so, again, unintended consequences, and this has a ripple effect because it affects the value of real estate. It affects the value of your credit. It affects a lot more stuff, like construction jobs, because I'm guessing a lot of people move into houses and they want to fix stuff up. Moving companies. It affects way more things that we actually even consider. Everything is connected. The value of things is connected, right? And it also depends so let's transfer that to the value of human labor. Just because you do something doesn't mean that it's valuable. For example, if I sell ice cream cones in the tundra, I can make the best ice cream cones in the world, I'm probably not going to sell much. Or if I sell ski equipment in Hawaii, it's probably not going to sell much. This is where we enter supply and demand. There's a reason why when you buy summer equipment or summer clothing in the winter, it's cheaper. It's because there's less demand for summer clothing. That's why it's actually better to do. If you're going to buy summer stuff, you should buy it in winter. Or the inverse, you should buy winter stuff, like winter clothing, during the summer, because that's when there's less demand. So the prices go lower. So the same rules of supply and demand apply to human labor, right? Let's say you're doing a job that anybody can do, low-skilled labor. I worked in fast food. I worked in the fast food industry. I worked in retail. I work in customer service. I worked in all that stuff. Anybody can do it with 1 day of training, right? That's pretty much it. You just follow the rules. You understand how the computer works, or they just put you clean. And pretty much anybody can do it with minimal training. So the person who does a job that needs minimal training will not get paid the same as, let's say, a doctor who went to school for 10 years. Why? Because the value of their services is completely different. The value of their training, how hard it is. One person had to go to school for 10 years, and you're trusting their life, and you're trusting your life with them. The reason why they went to school for 10 years is so that you would be willing to to put your life in their hands. You would not put your life in the hands of an unskilled worker. And that's why they charge you what they charge you. That's why it's so expensive. Because it took them 10 years to get to the point where you would be willing to put your life in their hands blindly in many cases. So, returning to the unskilled labor, how much should you pay them? Well, honestly, it all depends. If you're asking people who believe in the market should dictate, it all depends on how many people want to apply to that job. So, if you have 100 people that want to do that job and you only need one, then you can pick whoever is willing to get the least money. Now, we have minimum wage laws here in California, here in the U.S., and so I guess you just give everybody the minimum. But if you only have one person who's applying for a particular job, or only or again, if it's skilled stuff, if it's only one person who can actually do it, or one person who's actually the best at doing it, you might be like, all right, okay, I'll pay you more. That's kind of how salaries get negotiated. If you're the best at what you're doing, odds are that you should be getting paid a little bit more than the rest of the people who do the same thing that you do. But let's stick here again. Now, what happens when there's 30 million people unemployed within a couple months? Your value has immediately decreased. So let's say, I don't know, what's a job that's been losing a lot of work lately? Let's say you're the manager of a restaurant, right? Restaurants, they're shutting down, and there's a lot of really small mom and pop restaurants, and maybe that had to close down, or maybe they're like, all right, okay, well, we had a GM, but we can't afford you anymore. So, I mean, I'm the owner. I'm going to start to do more stuff myself, and I'll release you, and I'm sorry. I mean, I really love you. You've done a great job, but I'm sorry I have to let you go. So you're like, all right, it's fine. I got 20, 30 years of experience managing a restaurant. I'm sure I can get a job. So you're a restaurant manager, and you just hit a market where there's 30 million other people trying to find a job. And let's say that you were paid, let's keep it an easy number, $50,000 a year. Let's just keep it simple. Let's keep it like an easy number to follow. $50,000 a year before in your other job being the manager, the general manager of a restaurant. And now all of a sudden you hit a market where there's 30 million people searching for jobs. And a lot of restaurants have shut down. What do you do? I mean, you have management experience, but I'm assuming that a lot of the people in the 30 million who just lost their jobs also have management experience. So the odds of you finding another $50,000 job competing against another 30 million people, and let's just assume that only 1% of those has management experience, right? Out of the 30 million people who lost their jobs within 2 months, and I'm assuming they're trying to find another job, only 1% of those actually has management experience comparable to yours. That's still 3 million people. So let's assume that only 1% of those are actually in your state. So that's still 30,000 people. And let's assume that only 1% of those are actually within your area that you're willing to commute. That's still 300 people. So 300 people are going to be applying to the exact same amount of jobs, which, by the way, the supply of jobs has gone down because restaurants closed and businesses closed and because they were not sustainable anymore. So they had to shut their doors, and now there's less jobs out there, and you're competing with another 300 equally experienced people, right? What does that do to your value? You think they're going to hire you at $50,000, especially considering how the economy is right now? No, they're going to hire the person who's willing to say, all right, I'll take the less money. And that might have to be you. That's how that works. So the economy crashing does not mean that, we're just losing money. It means that your value, the value of your labor has gone down. And just to help bring this home even a little bit more, like, have you ever had a good idea? Well, that idea, unless you actually put labor into it, is worthless. Let's say if you had the idea, I don't know, for flying cars that could, get anywhere for free. Or a teleportation machine. Let's say you have the idea for a teleportation machine, right? And unless you actually put labor into it, meaning that you actually work on it to build it, that idea is worthless. Or unless, you sold the idea to somebody else and that person makes it happen, and then they make all the money because you sold the idea. So the idea is worth nothing unless you actually put labor into it, right? So labor has an inherent value. I want that to make that perfectly clear. Labor has a value, the same as an apple has a value, the same as fuel has a value. But if you don't use it for something, it's useless. It's worthless. Again, back to the example of a car. A car without fuel has no value. A car without a driver, well, I mean, there's driverless cars, but let's assume that a car without either an AI driver or a real driver has no value. Your idea, without any labor behind it, is useless. It has no value. And so, you need to put things together. Here's what I want to drive home. Things put together is what gives things value. However, things in competition or in low demand and in high supply bring value down. So right now, if you lost your job, you are competing with 300 million other people who are also looking for jobs, right? So the longer that this stays locked up, the more that the foundations of this economy keeps crumbling, meaning the more businesses that shut down permanently, meaning that there's going to be less jobs for people to come back to, meaning that they're going to be competing with more people for the same jobs, meaning that their value of their labor is going down. The value of my labor is going down. The value of our industry, we're forced to, well, right now, one of the things that's happening is that some people, they're being forced to take 2 weeks unpaid vacation. That happens to certain industries. It's actually the most common thing. It's probably the first move that most companies made to try to save some money, which sucks because usually when you get 2 weeks of unpaid, some companies pay you for vacation, but when you get 2 weeks of unpaid vacation, you know what you actually get? A vacation. You go out, you spend money somewhere, and that's actually good for the tourism industry for that particular reason. It's good for the transport industry. It's good for a lot of things. That money ain't circulating. That money's stuck, and that money is losing its value. Your labor is losing your value. You are losing your value. So for those of you who say, so to answer the question of why should I care about the economy crashing, you are a part of this economy. The value of your work is part of this economy, and that's why you care. That's why you should care. Your value, every single hour of work you put in, every single minute, every single drop of sweat has value, and it is diminishing by the second. That is why you should care, right? That is why it's so important to get this thing going again, because every single second, you, me, your mother, everybody is losing their economic value because the demand for jobs, meaning the jobs that are hiring, the number is going down, and the supply of labor, meaning you, is going up. That's why you should care, right? So for those of you who think, well, why don't you just give us more money? Why don't you just print more money? Money does not have value. And let me give you a perfect example of why just money does not have value. It's what's behind it. Let me take you back to post-World War I Germany. Now, for those of you who don't know what happened post-World War Germany, I will kind of try to take you into the life of what it was like to be a German back in that time. After World War I, everybody was kind of upset with the Germans because they started a world war and then they lost. And so the world gave them a bunch of really, really harsh sanctions that actually crippled the country for a very, very long time. And some people could argue that those sanctions were the reason why the Nazis rose and why the Second World War actually happened. But I won't get into that. Again, hindsight is always 20/20. So in that particular period of time, people in Germany would go out to work, and they would come back home with barrels full of money, like a huge wagon full of money, and that money wasn't even worth the paper it was printed on. And so what a lot of people did was they would just use money as wallpaper. And I'm not kidding. Look this up. You can actually look it up. Google it right now. Germany money hyperinflation wallpaper. And you'll see a whole bunch of pictures of people just with barrels full of money and just using it as wallpaper. Why? Because it was worth nothing. That's what happens when you have inflation. It's worthless because you have an excess of supply and it lowers the value of it. So you have a whole bunch of people with a whole bunch of money that's not really worth anything. It's not even worth the paper it's printed on. So you would actually you'd be better off using the paper for something else, but you have it. And so then you go to the store. And when you're at the store, the prices for anything are updated almost pretty much by the minute because the value of everything is changing. There's uncertainty in the markets for everything. So it's possible that you have your money and all of a sudden the value of that money by the time you pick something and you're in line to pay for it, the value of that changed. And so let's say you had your money, you were budgeted, you were like, all right, I have enough to buy, let's say, this apple again, right? Let's stick in with the apple. I have enough. I have $1 million right here, $1 million German dollars to buy this apple because that's what it cost. The time it takes you to get to the register, that apple might be worth more. And so you're screwed. Now, apply that to, let's say, your rent. Imagine that you worked and you're still working the same time. Here's the thing that's crazy. Those people were still working the same amount of hours. They were still producing the same amount of apples. They were producing the same amount of things. So their economy was stable. The problem was that their money wasn't worth anything because they hyperinflated their currency. That's the issue when you inject $7 trillion into the economy artificially. That's the issue so you can't just print money to fix things. It's actually going to, again, screw with the value of your labor. It's going to screw with the value of your products, of your goods and services. That's the issue here. That's the thing that's at stake. So hopefully I did a good job trying to bring that across. Hopefully I know that I have an issue explaining things because I tend to go on rants and tangents and forget it, but hopefully I think that I got the main point across. The issue here is the value of your labor. That's what you should care. The economy is directly connected with your value, with your economic value, the money that you can make, the money that you can earn for your own labor. That's why you should care. And that's why you should be very upset that there's petty tyrants out there trying to extend this way longer than it should be when every single piece of evidence is pointing to the fact that we should go the other direction just because we're being naughty little children who's, trying to go to the beach and have a normal life. No, how dare you? Because here's the thing that you don't know. They think you're stupid. They think you're irresponsible. They don't think you're an adult. They think you're a child, and they need to spank you. So, to me, the response to that has always been, fuck you. I'm a grown-ass man. I can be responsible for my own fucking life, and I'm very, very sick of this. I'm very, very sick because all the evidence is pointing in the opposite direction, and there's actual consequences to keeping this shut down longer than it should be, and we're going to begin feeling them very, very soon, and it's going to start getting very ugly when the food shortages hit because the supply line has been hurt, and now hungry people are very angry people. And I hope we don't reach the point where we discover that, but unfortunately, it looks like that's where we're heading. And so hopefully, I don't know, hopefully this helped out. I don't know. Hopefully it didn't worry you too much, but we should be worried. This is not great stuff. But as always, any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Dario the Show on Instagram, my Super Dario World. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you again next time.